Hello, the Internet. Welcome to 10 Ways You Can Increase Click-Through Rate Today. My name is Sean Quadlin. I'm a writer and account manager at PPC Hero and Hanapin Marketing. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Larry Kim. He's the founder of WordStream. He's been doing PPC and SEO for 10 years. 5 years ago, he started WordStream. And he also is the man responsible for AdWords Grader and the 20-minute PPC work week. Hello, Larry. How you doing?
Doing great, Sean. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and it's great to be doing a webinar with PPC Hero Hanapin Marketing Crew. These are actually my favorites, so I hope you guys enjoyed what we've prepared today.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you don't have other webinar partners listening in who just got scalded to the core. That's so great to hear.
Awkward.
You can just tell them you were being nice. It won't upset me. But just a little bit about me. I'm not as big a deal as Larry. I don't get quoted in USA Today like Larry does sometimes. I'm just a humble little account manager at Hanapin Marketing, like I said, and I focus primarily on lead generation. So I do stuff in education, publishing, software as a service, and then just goes on and on from there. But lead generation is my main shtick. And so,
Sean, you're being too modest. Audience, Sean was also the award winner at the recent PPC Hero conference of the most, the most funny presenter and most humorous or something, most loved presenter award.
Most beloved. The official term is most entertaining, but
most entertaining. Yes, that's it. So.
Thank you for bringing it up, Larry. I'm blushing over here. You can't even see it.
All right.
Today we're going to be talking about it's click-through rate. So that you guys signed up, you know what the deal is. But we're going to start. Larry's going to give a good intro about why click-through rate matters. I think you guys probably know this, but he's going to really make sure that you know, because there are some things that Larry knows that some of us wish we knew. And then we're going through 10 tips. So we're basically going to hand the mic back and forth and go one at a time. And then hopefully you'll have some questions afterward, and we're going to try to save some time for them. We also have a hashtag going on. I think it's so cool to have a hashtag. Sometimes I'm just amazed that people have hashtagged things that I have said. So thank you for that, and know that it's appreciated. But if you have any questions, we'll be there to answer. And then we're going to start with a live poll. We've done this in the past, and so we're just kind of getting a sense of the audience and what you guys are doing here. So. How long have you been in PPC? We have 4 different answers. There are, I guess, 4 different buckets that we're going. And did you launch the poll? Here it is. There's the poll. So it's just either less than 1 year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5, or 5+. Larry, so earlier you said that you've been in here for 10+. We don't even have a category for you. I can't even imagine how you must feel about this.
Yeah, it's getting kind of uncomfortable to be the oldest guy in the room, kind of.
That sounds like a good level of discomfort, though. I think it's probably appreciated for everyone you're talking to. What would you say? I guess just because you do a lot of speaking at conferences and things like that. What would you say the average is? Like, when you see people out in the world, what would you expect them to be in terms of level of experience in PPC?
It's like right around 3. It's a very young industry still, even though it's been around for a while. That's what I'm seeing.
Okay, yeah, it's very cool to hear. And so now we're going to show our results. Look at that. Larry, guys, 10 years of experience means that he can answer our own poll questions for us. A very young industry, 45% are 1 to 3 years, and then 31% are less than 1 year. So welcome, everybody. Even the 5+, we have 9% of you. It's great to have you guys. All right, so now it's back to me. We have another.
Thank you.
Can you see? Okay. We have another live poll question real quick. So just since we're going to be talking about optimizations today, we'd love to get a sense of how you guys manage stuff. And so here's the poll. It's either you manage it yourself, you're part of a team that manages it, you can either outsource it, or you're maybe thinking of changing things up. Larry, do you do much account management? Or I guess, how does WordStream do things? How do you guys distribute the work that goes on?
We are a provider of software tools, so actually for the vast majority of times the customers do the work themselves, but they're using our software to help them do it themselves. It's kind of like tools, and I know that's pretty different from what you guys do there.
Yeah, we definitely We actually, we enjoy some of your software on a daily basis. So we use it. I'm generally part of a team. So all the accounts that I'm on, I work with other people, and it's collaborative and fun. Yesterday we had a meeting where we had to think of campaign names and stuff like that. So I'm part of a team, is how I would say. Oh, wow. So 66% of you guys manage it yourself. Kudos to you. And then I guess I'm part of the 28% that is part of a team. So that's very cool. And Joe, we just want to get a sense of that when we head into how the different optimizations are going.
Awesome.
So now, Larry, I'm going to kick it over to you. I'm sorry for dominating the first 7 minutes of this webinar, but now it's on to you about click-through rate and just why it matters.
All right, guys. So before getting into all the details of how to raise your click-through rate, I think it's helpful to just take a minute to think about, why you might want to focus on click-through rate. After all, there's a ton of different metrics in your PPC account that you could potentially be focusing on. So what makes click-through rates so important? And so, well, obviously Google tells us the higher your click-through rates are, the more you'll be rewarded with this thing, a magical thing called quality score. And that they say the benefit of this quality score is more prominent ad positions and lower cost per clicks. And so, just because Google says something doesn't mean you shouldn't go ahead and verify it yourself. And so, earlier this year, I was just looking at click-through rates across a couple $100 million of spend, and I can definitely conclude with a very high degree of confidence that this is indeed the case, that there's an undeniable relationship between click-through rate and quality score on average. And so this plot that you're looking at on the screen, it just shows that on average, as your click-through rates get higher, so does your average quality score. And now keep in mind, this is an average, so it's possible to get a high click-through rate keyword with low quality score, but on average, those are the exceptions, not the rule. Next slide, please. And so basically, if I've convinced you that a higher click-through rate yields a higher quality score, then I would still need to convince you that having a higher quality score is indeed beneficial to your business. And so in order to kind of prove this, I was looking at cost per conversions, again, across a couple $100 million of AdWords spend. And I found indeed that there was a strong relationship between the cost per action and the quality score. And as you can see in this graph here, the higher the quality score of the keyword, the lower the cost per conversion on average. And so I'm not taking Google's word for this. This was just like data that we researched ourselves. And just if you're curious, the cost savings were driven almost entirely by lower cost per clicks for the higher quality score keywords as opposed to changes in conversion rates. So that's kind of on average, the higher your quality score, the lower your cost per actions. And so just to summarize here, I believe that click-through rate matters because on average, the higher your quality score, that's going to tend to improve your ad position and reduce your cost per click, and even result in lower cost per conversions. Now, keep in note that this is just on average, and there's definitely always exceptions to an average. So this isn't like infallible in terms of every possible case. But nevertheless, for this reason, I definitely view click-through rate as being a very important metric in your account. Anything to add there, Sean?
No, I just think you're right on the money. I've been convinced by this before. We've talked about click-through rate on previous webinars together, and it's super important. And so, worst case scenario, you have a great quality score if you focus on click-through rate, just like you were saying. So it's all the reason to do it. So I'm on board. You have convinced me. I'm excited for these tips.
Cool. So what do we have next there?
We're going to, start into them. And you are first up with tip 10. We're counting down, guys. 10 to 1.
Awesome. So the first step in optimizing your click-through rate, I believe, is to measure your click-through rate and figure out exactly how good or bad it is in the first place. So it's my belief that click-through rate in general can be a little tricky to interpret because, as you know, click-through rate lumps together click-through rates on many, many different keywords with different average positions. And that's unfortunate because your ad position is going to have a huge impact on click-through rate. And so it's often hard to know whether or not your click-through rate is good or if it stinks because it's all kind of packed together like in one metric. And so that's definitely a challenge. Another issue that arises is that it's often hard to know, what you should be shooting for, what constitutes a good or bad click-through rate in the first place, because again, as I said before, the click-through rate tends to vary wildly by your ad position. And so, one of the easiest ways to unpack your click-through rates and try to figure out how they're doing versus the expected click-through rate for a given ad position is to grade your AdWords account using the free AdWords grader, which is both offered by Hanapin Marketing and WordStream. And as you can see in the screenshot here, what this free AdWords grader does is it plots the click-through rate versus the average position for your top 200 keywords in your account. So each dot in this graph is a keyword with a specific click-through rate and ad position. And on the same chart, it plots that kind of orangish yellow curve there where you can, and that's the expected click-through rate curve. And so you can quickly visualize if your keywords are above or below that expected average click-through rate line there. And so in this example, you can see that by doing this analysis, I can visually quickly see that the majority of the keywords here are falling below that average line. And so that gives me some idea that there's some room for improvement. It also kind of gives me some context as to how much possible improvement I need to do to be successful. In this case, I want to get to like 2% click-through rate or whatever. And so that's really helpful. The second, just to follow up on this here, another common attitude that I've kind of run into initially when trying to help motivate clients to improve their click-through rate is this notion of complacency. And so you probably know that your click-through rate won't improve by itself, and that you're going to have to test and try out a whole bunch of different things when trying out different keywords, ads, and many other tips and tricks that we're going to be talking about today. You're going to have to try out these things in your account and figure out what actually works for your customers. Yet I'm always kind of interested to see how little work on average gets done in the typical PPC account. So recently I was just looking at the change history logs for around 1,000 AdWords accounts, and what I found was that in the vast majority of accounts, nothing is ever done in a typical account for a typical week. So like no new ads, no new keywords, no bid changes, nothing. And so even though that these accounts are being managed by smart PPC marketers who know that they need to do stuff to improve results, that it's often a challenge to overcome complacency. And so I guess to summarize my first tip here, Sean, it's on improving click-through rates. It's to first measure the click-through rates and understand how good or bad the click-through rate is. And then when you have an understanding of sort of what is required in terms of your click-through rate improvements, to understand that it's going to be only through this thoughtful kind of daily or weekly or monthly optimization activities that you'll be successful. And so just getting into the mindset of optimization is my first tip there. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's a great tip. That yellow line that you have on your chart, I think it's really fun to see your accounts on there because you have some green dots of rejoicing for where you're beating the average, and then it also just gives you a really good action plan of I got to get these other green dots above the line. So knowing where that line is, I think, is crucial. And a lot of people don't know it. So I think that's a really great tip.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. And so now it is my tip. And so what it's about is just keyword targeting. And it's identifying low click-through rate keywords and then just kind of evaluating them from a different angle than what a lot of people do instead of just metrics. So it's basically just asking yourself if you're targeting the right things. Here's a Far Side cartoon that I'm particularly fond of how birds see the world, and they're just targets on all these different people. And so this bird is clearly targeting the right things from its bird needs, but are we targeting the right things from PPC needs? And so what I think it's important to do is establish a baseline, like what Larry was saying. That's an industry baseline to know where you're capable of getting. But for the purpose of this exercise, I think you want to establish what your baseline is just within your account now. So you're trying to move your account forward, and part of that is just knowing where your account currently stands. And so for me, that comes down to looking at campaign groups. I look at branded campaigns, I look at non-branded campaigns, and then I look at display campaigns differently. All of them are going to have different click-through rates, and so I kind of bucket all of those together so I know what the click-through rate is. So for this specific example, this account within non-branded search campaigns has a click-through rate of 0.89%, which according to the yellow line that we just saw, there's some room for improvement. There's some stuff that we can do there. And so my first step sometimes is to just filter all of my keywords for a click-through rate lower than 0.89%, look for the stuff that's dragging us down, and then I spend my most time on the highest impression keywords. So I'll identify kind of a list of the stuff that's really driving the traffic. So people are seeing our ad, but then they're not clicking it. And so instead of just looking at metrics and and things like that, I just kind of ask myself on a basic level, does the keyword make sense? Is it something that we can target and then actually deliver on? There are times where you're trying to, grow your business, trying to grow into new areas and just find new users that haven't heard of you before. But coming along with that, sometimes it's too far to make that leap, at least where you currently stand. So if there's something that you can do eventually, you're just not doing it yet, I guess listen to the rest of our 8 tips because you can improve that click-through rate. But there are other times where with the keyword you're targeting and with the ad text you're capable of and the landing page you're going to drive them to, just none of those clicks are going to be useful for you ever. And so at that point, you can pause or delete the keyword and just get it out of your life. Move on and do something else. Just a quick example of that. We were doing an AdWords grader. We were just going through a live PPC clinic. I think this was a couple months ago, Larry. The two of us, we have such history together. And we were doing, it was somebody who had solar panels, and they were bidding just on the keyword broad match panels. And just think of all the different panels there are in the world. I'm in this room right now, and there are panels on the walls, and there are panels on the couch. There are so many panels. And so it's not a case where you're doing the wrong things with what your ads say, with what you're, just how you're managing your account. Your keyword just on a basic level isn't the right targeting for you. So I just trying to identify those keywords and then kind of cutting the fat out of your account, I think that's a really good way to get quick wins. And then when you make further optimizations, they're going to be that much more effective because you're not trying to break a wheel that's never going to fit onto your bike. You're only trying to, reinflate the tires that really get you moving to carry on that stupid comparison. Did that sound all right to you, Larry? Do you have anything to add to my point?
No, I think that was a really great analogy there. Thank you.
Thank
So, which brings us to our next tip here, which is to basically to leverage different ad formats and ad extensions. And so I'm sure you've all noticed that over the last 2 years, Google's been releasing, an ad extension every other week, it seems. So there's about 24 or so different ad extension formats, and they're basically all designed to help draw additional attention to your ads, and I think that's really super key in driving your click-through rates and making your ads stand out there. And so just take a look at the screenshot for a second here. It's a search on a stainless steel dishwasher, and as you can see, all these like super-size ads, they all occupy kind of 85% of the above the fold space on a desktop browser, and look how these humongous ads are able to kind of take up all the real estate and crowd out everything else there by adding all sorts of bells and whistles to their ads, like images and site links and ratings, and they're just you're just accessorizing your ads basically. And so in addition to raising click-through rates, ad extensions also have another beneficial effect. And that is they can actually raise conversion rates. So how is this possible? Well, the idea here is that since additional information is being provided to the user prior to clicking on the ad, such as image and price information, when that user then clicks on that ad and arrives to the site, they're further down the funnel already. They already have that price and image information kind of infused in their brain prior to clicking. And so last week I was just talking to the lead product manager for product listing ads at Google, and she was telling me that these PLAs on average have a 20 to 50% higher click-through rate than their non-PLA kind of comparable position ads, and so I thought that was pretty remarkable. So when it comes to the different ad extensions, like maybe you're not a shopping e-commerce provider, fine, but there's still many other possible ads that you can choose from. This is the site links, which allows you to provide additional calls to action and increases sort of the vertical height of your ads. There's location extensions for directions to your physical store or location. There's communication extensions for doing like email signups. There's social extensions for doing to linking your Google Plus account. There's so many here. Like this one was a crazy one that I saw the other day, a live chat extension. So it actually pops up a chat window, so you can talk to the leads while they're super hot. This is a new one that's like in beta right now. So if you want to get access to this one, it's you'd have to talk to Sean or me. But basically, what this one is, it's an image ad extension. So Google's saying for certain types of verticals such as travel and automotive, by infusing an image in combination with your ad text, it can really greatly improve the click-through rate. And so that's a really interesting beta that either of us could probably get you hooked up with. And here's this mobile click-to-call extension again. These things all work in combination to greatly increase your click-through rate. So if you're not using all the applicable ad extensions to your business, this is really low-hanging fruit. Anything to add there, Sean?
I'm just always curious to see what trend makes the leap from beta to real life thing. I think that live chat, I think it's kind of bananas. Like, I wonder how many people actually do the live chat. Same with signing up for newsletters. I'm curious to see who would put their email in just a PPC ad, only having read the ad and just say, oh yeah, start emailing me stuff. So I'm very curious. I think they're interesting in theory, and I definitely think you should try them out. Because they're free. As some movie, I think Super Trooper says, don't cost nothing. So it's good to get in there and see what happens with them. So it's interesting stuff, and I think it's definitely something to take advantage of.
I think it's a little bit of a arms race, because the kind of the accessorized ads are going to be kind of sucking up a lot of the intent and clicks from all the other kind of non-accessorized ads, and so it's a situation where there could potentially be a pretty big first mover advantage if you're able and willing to try out some of these new things.
Yeah, I think arms race is just the perfect way to put it. So you definitely don't want to be left behind in that. It makes great sense.
So what's next there?
All right. So now, my tip, it's kind of going back to keyword targeting, but this one, it's the execution of it. So we started out by seeing if we're targeting the right keywords. And now that we know we're targeting the right stuff, and just if you think about it, the logic behind them makes sense, now we're just going on to the next step of seeing what that match type is. And as soon as I heard the word match, my mind immediately went to Martha Stewart. And then just to show topicality, they're bidding on it, which I thought was interesting, and I figured, why not put the screenshot in the webinar? So if you search MarthaStewartMatch.com, they have a very targeted ad for you. So kudos to Match.com. I think they're doing a good job there. But for our purposes today, I've cross-sampled some of the accounts that Hanapin manages and just looked on a basic level what match type we're doing and how the click-through rate is. And I've seen these same statistics borne out pretty much in all of my accounts. Exact match is always going to be your highest. And I have to say almost. We have to have our caveats, Larry. I don't want anybody to say, hey, wait a minute. So it's possible. I would say it's pretty rare. And then phrase is next, and then broad and modified broad generally have the lowest click-through rates of the three. So if you're looking for really quick wins when it comes to click-through rate, like if you have some sort of goal that you need to hit within a week, I don't know why anyone would do that, but I'm just saying if that became an issue for you, you could just look to cut out broad or modified broad keywords from your account. I think they're great to have. It's something that drives growth in your account. That's the place where you can really get good search queries to then pull them up into exact match so you know what you're going for, and it's a good way to grow, and I think they should be used. But if you're trying to get a really high click-through rate for your account, you can just cut out a modified broad here or just a regular broad match there, and you're going to save yourself a lot of impressions without cutting out that many clicks. So that's just a good way to get a quick win on it. And I have a couple of different tactics that I use when I'm coming to my match types. And it also kind of goes back to budget maintenance. Like I said, broad match is a good way to grow your account, and also it kind of soaks up stuff on the periphery. But if you're coming toward the end of the month and you want to really cut stuff down, I actually have all my ad groups broken out by match types. I've inherited stuff where it's still, for full disclosure, I still have some ad groups where it's all match types in there. But for the stuff that I've built out from scratch, I have modified broad in that match type, in that ad group's name. And so I can just go in really quick, search for all my ad groups with modified broad, and just cut them right out of the account. And so, like you pointed out earlier, generally, if you have the higher click-through rate, you're going to have a better, just a better CPA. And so a lot of times my broad match sometimes has my higher CPA as well, so it's kind of a double whammy. Not only do I get a better click-through rate, I get more targeted traffic, and thereby I get a higher conversion rate. So that's why I like ad groups and match type. And then if you are in an account where you have different match types in the same ad groups, you could label the match types that are bad and just say, like my volume generators, something like that. And so when it comes to that time of the month to cut out some of your bad impressions or comes time to cut out some of your cost, you can just go to that label, turn them all off, and just wait till the next month when you have a little bit more room in your budget, a little bit more wiggle room. So it's all about just making sure that you can organize it yourself and be aware of what keywords may drive volume but then kind of harm your click-through rate and just cut them out when the time comes to do so. So that's how I handle match types. I think it's a kind of a really quick way to win on click-through rate, and it's a good thing to keep in mind. So that was my second tip, Larry.
Awesome. Hey, just a question for you there. Do you find that modified broad match across like a lot of accounts does more poorly than broad match?
I was actually surprised by that. So the stuff that I've managed, modified broad does better for me. But this again was a sampling of all of our a lot of our bigger accounts, and so I was surprised because on the whole it does. My case by case expectation is that modified broad is more targeted than broad. How about you? What have you seen? You've seen so much more data than I have, Larry. I have data envy.
Well, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it's more restrictive than broad match, so I would have expected it to be a little bit more targeted, but it doesn't seem to bear out in the data there.
Yeah, I think if we took a longer scope and probably controlled out some of the variables, I think it's very possible that modified broad is just logically it's so much more stringent than broad match. So I would say that's an A/B test that I would definitely keep running. So I think your question is absolutely valid, and I'm on your side. I agree with you.
Cool. Awesome. So I think our next one is me, and it is to bid on branded terms. Now, one of our audience members today actually typed in here, I can see, what is a branded term? And so a branded term is a search term that includes like your brand, so like WordStream or like Hanapin marketing. So the idea behind a branded term is that the person who's doing the searching kind of already knows a little bit about you and your business. It doesn't just have to be just the word WordStream. It could be like WordStream pricing or Hanapin reviews. Like it can be a phrase, but
Larry, you still there? Guys, we might have lost Larry. And so hopefully he'll be dialing back in soon with his headset, and I can just pick up where he was talking about. And basically, branded terms just reflect back on prior knowledge. It's somebody that, through whatever means, whether it's a display that they've seen. Are you back, Larry? Did I just hear a breath intake? Nope, no Larry, guys. It's somebody who's aware of your brand by some other means, and then they head over to a search engine, and they don't know what your direct URL is, and so they'll search for something. They'll search for your direct site, or else they can search specifically for something like Larry was talking about, whether it's reviews or it's a specific product, or it could be like a partner brand. I manage some accounts where they have it's kind of like WordStream and Hanapin. We have a partnership, but theirs kind of goes deeper, and it's an offshoot of one different brand. And so we actually include kind of the mothership as part of the branded campaign because it's somebody who's already aware enough of the fringe connection, and so they just kind of come around in the background.
Cool. Hey, can you hear me there? Great. So basically, the idea here it was yes, so there was some kind of glitch in the matrix there. Sorry, audience. Apologize. But basically, the idea here is that just look at this chart here on your screen here, and this is a ridiculous chart. So those dots there are the keywords in this guy's account. And look how he's getting click-through rates of like 60, 70, 80%, 50, 40%. So a part of his strategy for getting these high click-through rates is to use branded branded terms. Now, not all of his account is branded terms. Just roughly 10% of his account is branded terms. But he's also doing branded competitor and partner terms, and so his click-through rate on average is actually 14%, even though his average ad position is just 2.88. So like he's typically like in the third spot, which is not necessarily like the most prominent spot there. I mean, it's kind of right in the middle, but he's still getting an average click-through rate from search across his account of 14%. So I think that's really astronomically high. In fact, it's the 98th percentile of all the accounts that I've looked at here. So he's got a 98% score, and so basically the idea was to maybe use those branded terms to raise your account click-through rate, and the reason why that might matter has to do with your quality scores. So this guy's average quality score in his account is 8.8 out of 10. Look how nuts this is. Like every keyword in his account has a quality score of either 10 or 7. There are no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s or 6s. Even though he's got keywords with like 0.1% click-through rate and 0.4% click-through rate, like keywords that don't necessarily deserve it, are getting quality scores 7 and 10. Did you know about this little life hack here, Sean?
I didn't know the ramifications. At Hanapin, we definitely bid on branded terms, but I hadn't thought through weighted impression share or weighted, quality score. And this is dynamite. I guess my question for you though, how is this only in the 98th percentile, Larry? Who's in 99? Is there somebody like with a 25%?
I know some people who like they see the 7s and they delete them. It's pretty fun.
Wow.
It just depends on how how obsessive you want to be here, but basically what's happening here is that when Google's calculating your quality score, they're taking into consideration the average click-through rate of your account as one of the factors. And so because he's got a decent amount of branded terms that are kind of raising the average click-through rate of the account, it has this effect of kind of floating all the boats. And so all of the keywords in this guy's accounts are 7s and 10s, 7 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, which is just amazing. So there's one kind of unconventional way of raising your click-through rates. So back to you, Sean.
Yeah, and so now we're going to go back to the audience and just, I guess, check back in on you guys because we care about you. We're here for you. And so we're doing another live poll. I don't want to get too spoilery. We are going to be talking about ads in a little bit. But when it comes to click-through rate, ads are very important. And so we're just curious, what aspects do you test most frequently? There are headlines, calls to action, specific benefits in the body copy, stuff like that. Display URLs and appending stuff toward the end and seeing if that moves the needle at all. And then also kind of the other stuff, as I phrased it so eloquently. Whether it's punctuation, like I really like doing exclamation point tests because I don't like exclamation points and I'm trying to test them out of accounts. And things like title case, whether or not you capitalize every letter. That's another one that I want to test out, but it just keeps winning, so all my ads still have title case, and I'm always bummed about it. But Larry, is there anything that you think, when it comes to just ad testing, what do you think is the most effective tech? Like if somebody wants an ad test to really do something for them, what would you recommend they test?
I try to write these really weird, sensational ads with like really bold and ridiculous claims or shocking headlines, just attention-grabbing stuff. It's kind of like maybe think like New York Post kind of stuff.
The back pages. I like it.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so, I think it looks like a pretty even split. Headlines at 27%, calls to action 41%, specific benefits 27%. And how about the other stuffers? I'm proud of you guys, 3%. I love testing that stuff. But now we're going to get back to the webinar content. And we're actually doing a display network webinar inside another webinar. So it's like,
holy cow, this is amazing. I bet you didn't realize you're going to get an extra webinar in a webinar.
This is the best thing that's ever happened to these people, Larry. They can't even believe their luck. And you also get the benefit of seeing these Twilight Russian nesting dolls. I was looking for a silly picture of Russian nesting dolls for far too long, but I am so glad that I did because it paid off in spades. Look at this thing. It's got Edward and Bella, and then I think is it Jacob and Bella, and then the smallest one of all, the little werewolf guy at the bottom. It's great. But we're going to do 2 of our 10 tips specifically for the display network. And so the first one is using different ad formats. So since there's different inventory available, you can use text in addition to image ads. And so this is just another cross-sampling of Hanapin stuff. And you can see a nice little bump from text to image. And so there are also a lot of different sizes of image ads. So that's something that you want to test. That's a case where it's kind of like match types. Some have better click-through rates than others. And so I'll cut out the bad performing sizes. I found that stuff on the top of the page gets a crazy amount of clicks, but it doesn't convert. So like the big, I can't remember all of Google's weird names for them. It's like the banner or something. It's the narrow one that usually goes on the top of stuff. And then if we remove this orange bar, the most different ad format out there is display ads. And so that's kind of the stuff that moves. It's the thing that has moving pieces. And you can see here that it's doing tremendously well. It's something that if you're not doing, you should really try it. I'm actually going to a client meeting in 2 hours after this webinar, and I'm going to talk to them about their need for more display ads. They're the ones that create all their stuff. There's always kind of a backlog, and so we want to move from images into display because other clients of ours just are doing great things with it. Look at that enormous lift and click-through rate, and so that's going to be a quick win. Just having a headline that just swoops into frame. For some reason, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I want to click on that ad so bad right now." And Google also has a great thing available for people if you have a limited bandwidth when it comes to actually creating stuff. You can just do new ad, and then there's the display ad builder. And they have a lot of different options. They have expandable stuff. I've read a survey or a study recently that said the tablet users really like expandable ads. So that might be something worth trying out, especially since tablets, you have to do them nowadays in the land of enhanced campaigns. So with expandable videos and things like that, you can really try to cater your stuff a lot more toward tablet users. And then in addition to that, they just have a lot of, they're kind of basic templates, but you can customize them like crazy. You can change the colors of buttons, you can change the colors in the background, you can upload your own photos to them. And so it's a lot of really good opportunities for you. And if you want to improve your display click-through rate, this seems like a really good way to get a quick win out there. So put together a couple of these. We have a video tutorial on PPC Hero in case you're curious about the specifics. So check it out. That's a good one. And then, continuing right along with our Russian nesting dolls, Twilight, Display Network webinar inside another webinar, we're going to talk about frequency capping on your campaigns. So this is something I talked about at HeroConf. I apologize if there are any of the attendees here who have heard this before. I don't want to be a repetitive guy, but I guess I'm a little proud of this one. So I just wanted to talk about a quick report. It kind of limits how annoying you are. Sometimes people follow around on marketing just over and over, and you're like, why did I ever click on that site? Because people come after me like crazy. And this is a way to actually prevent that kind of perception from cropping up. And then only some of these campaign types track this on their own. So interest categories and then remarketing automatically can view this report, but for other campaigns you actually have to add frequency capping before you can even report on it. So keep that in mind for other stuff, so for keywords and topics. But just it's on the Dimensions tab. I just do reach and frequency by day, and then you can download it into Excel. It's a pretty simple report. It just says which day, how many times it's impressed, and then I actually create impressions by just multiplying frequency by unique users. It's kind of like Facebook right now, but you just have to add that one column yourself. And then you can just do a really quick pivot table with frequency as your row, and then just calculate your click-through rate, calculate your conversion rate, and calculate your conversions. And it only breaks it down 1 through 8. And so that's why I do reach and frequency by day. If you did it by month, you're going to have such a high percentage that have seen your ad at least 8 times in a month, so your numbers become almost meaningless. That's why I think on a daily basis it makes sense to do the frequency capping. And then if this is the report and how it looks, and if you just group it one at a time and just go down and see where your wins and losses are. So on our first impression remarketing campaign, our click-through rate's 44%, or 0.44%. And then 2 through 8 plus, it's 0.05. So that's just an astronomical lift. It's something, if you exclude that traffic, your click-through rate's just going to go be great, like almost immediately. However, you are going to lose a lot of your traffic because sometimes people do need that second run through to see what's going on. So in that first screenshot, we're losing 222 of our conversions. And so that's why I just walk through each of my impressions and see how frequent they are, and then see at what point the click-through rate stops being good and at what point we're only losing a small number of our conversions. So you can see the next step is just the first two, and our click-through rate's 0.29, still way better than 0.04. And I've done this all on my own. You guys don't want to see all of them, but for this specific campaign, I did cap it at 4 impressions per day, and so that way now our click-through rate should go from the 0.07, which was the old click-through rate across the entire account, to theoretically now up to 0.18%. We've employed this in places, and at times it hasn't been as big a gain. All this data is sampled from Google, so it's not perfect stuff, but it should, it gives you a sense of what's going on in your accounts. And then if you cap it at 4 impressions, you're only losing 88 conversions out of the 373. So there is a real quick win for you on display network campaigns. Just set up some frequency capping. And if you're setting up for a non-ICM remarketing campaign, you can just throw it, I would say to put it at 8 a day just to start with, because that's all that you can report on anyway. So I like to do stuff that I can report on. So that's what I would recommend if you're trying to cap some new campaigns like that. Whew. That was the display network webinar inside another webinar, Larry. Do you have anything that you wanted to comment on of the stuff that I just babbled about?
Well, I think that's a lot of interesting. That's a really interesting case study there in terms of the performance differences and what you did there. So thanks for sharing that. And this whole notion of a webinar inside a webinar, that's just another example how Sean at PPC Hero Hanapin Marketing goes above and beyond always on these webinar presentations. So thanks for that.
It was both of us, Larry. We both went above and beyond.
All right. What do we got next here? Let's see here. Oh yes, yes. So this is this is ad text testing. So basically, when it comes to ad testing, and if you're trying to improve your click-through rate by doing some ad text optimization, the great news here is that the bar is very, very low. So what you're looking here on your screen is a search for, I just picked a search, big data solutions. And this is what I call, this is my term, I call this a jackpot, because it's like, kaboom, we've got 4 ads that are basically the same. So that means there's a lot of opportunity in this jackpot to be like one of the kind of a more innovative company to produce something a little bit more sensational, a little bit more emotional, not just so matter of fact, kind of just reflecting back exactly what, like literally exactly what the user just searched on. So I mean, there's some opportunity here, and so how do you kind of take advantage of this jackpot here? And so I'm going to just take a page out of my friend and colleague. His name is Perry Marshall. He's got this great kind of process for brainstorming how to create these killer kind of emotional ads. And so the process involves just writing out, brainstorming kind of, who's your customer, what's something that your customer loves, list out things that your customer hates, who's your customer's best friend, what's your customer's worst enemy. So just kind of do this brainstorming and try to figure out all the different kind of relationships and angles that are possible that you could reflect into the 25 and 35 characters in those ads. And so once you've done that, the idea is to then kind of pair up edges of that graph, sort of like, who's your worst enemy, who's could be the husband, what's something that makes your customer really happy, revenge. Like this is an example for a divorce lawyer, and this is just an example of what I would consider to be a kind of a sensational kind of emotional ad that tends to get like 20 or 30% click-through rates. Who's your husband with now? Is he sleeping with her right now? Get revenge and a smile on your face. Badmarriagerevenge.com. So it's basically, yeah, it's almost like we've forgotten the marketing part of pay-per-click marketing. Like when we're writing all these ads, that so much of the ad texts are like those, like that jackpot of just like big data solutions or whatever. And I'm just trying to remind everyone here that there's a lot of kind of conventional, old-fashioned marketing that you can use to kind of really spice up those ads. Back to you, Sean.
Yeah, I think what you just said was a great point. Sometimes we forget the marketing aspect of what we do. So I just want to echo that. Really great point. I think that's something that we should think about all the time. But tip number 2, so we've counted down from 10 to 2. Everybody must be so sad. There are only 2 left. And so right here, I have a mushroom cloud because this is what I kind of consider the nuclear option. If you need to raise your bid, if you need to raise your click-through rate, you can just raise your bids. You can just tell Google you want to pay more. You get into a higher visibility, you get a higher average position, and you get more clicks because of it. Larry talked about this earlier. It's on the WordStream grader, and then if you just search, click-through rate by average position, you're just going to see a million images like this in Google of all the different studies people have done. And click-through rate, just in a higher average position, is a big deal. And then also just being on top of the page. And so being on top of the page is another case where you just need a higher bid to even be able to appear there. And like I was saying, it just means a higher CTR, the better your visibility is. And I do want to caution, though, that sometimes higher bids have higher CPCs. I've seen a case where we just wanted to get a good click-through rate. We really pushed the bids almost to their breaking point. We were so aggressive with it, but our CPL kind of went haywire there for a little bit. So be careful. Keep that in mind. That's why I consider it the nuclear option. It's a method of last resort. And just be smart about it so that you can survive the blast. Here we have Indiana Jones surviving a nuclear explosion in a refrigerator. So
yeah, that works all the time.
it's a foolproof method. I think this was a documentary. I think this was just footage from the 60s. So it's just about just finding your way. Imagine if Google were crazy George Lucas, and we just need to find our own refrigerators to be able to survive something like raising our bids to get a higher click-through rate. And then Larry, we were talking about this just a little bit ago, and you said that sometimes raising your bids, you've seen cases where it doesn't even affect CPC. Is that right?
Right. I think this is like a devilishly, really ingenious kind of tip here on raising your bids, and that is sometimes you get in this weird situation where by raising your bids, there's a difference between the max CPC and what you actually pay, your actual CPC. There's like a discount. It's always less, and that discount is related to your quality score. And so there's this really interesting phenomenon sometimes that I see where by raising your bids, you can then raise your quality score and then reduce the raise your click-through rates because you're in a better position, and thereby reduce your average cost per click, or at least not raise it as much as you thought you would raise it. And so I think that's kind of a very ingenious idea here. Basically, one little factoid that you may or may not be aware of is that Google says, oh, you can't mess around with your quality score by raising your bids. Like they say, they normalize your ad. The click-through rate is normalized by the ad position. So moving from third position to second position, that's not going to help. But what I found is actually that that's true, but it's not perfectly normalized. There's definitely sort of favoritism happening to kind of the keywords in the higher positions with the higher bids, and so that's just another life hack there for you.
And that's a good one, guys. Larry's risking life and limb. That's privileged information, but it's like in communism how some people are more equal than others. Some weighted quality scores are better than others. So raise your bids, maybe. Be careful.
Of course. So what do we got next here?
The final one.
More drum roll, please. Oh man, let's just use negative keywords. We should have used the nuclear option as the last one.
No, you gotta sell it, Larry. You gotta be excited. Negative keywords. This is the real deal, guys. There's a reason it was #1.
All right, guys. So click-through rate is defined as your clicks divided by impressions, and so in order to improve your click-through rate, reduce the amount of garbage impressions that you're accruing to your keywords. And so by definition, fewer dumb impressions on keywords that have and search queries that have nothing to do with your business mathematically guarantees a higher click-through rate. So the question therefore becomes simply how to find all these negative keywords, because I guess it's very hard to kind of anticipate kind of what kind of unwanted searches that you didn't intend on accruing. And so for that, I would recommend using a negative keyword tool. So there's one included in WordStream. And so how a negative keyword tool looks looks at the kind of the keyword modifiers. We call them negative keyword contenders. So here's an ad for like finding long tail keywords. Just explore the long tail of search and lower your PPC costs. So this is like an ad for WordStream's software, and then one of the negative keyword opportunities that's been highlighted by the software is the word define, because it's kind of not generating conversions, it's wasting money, and maybe that word define is kind of more informational orientation. It's like not someone who's looking to necessarily buy something. They just want to know the definition of what a long tail keyword is. So that's an example of how you could then take these guys out of your impressions, and thereby mathematically guaranteeing your raised click-through rate. And now there's been a little bit of the debate about whether or not negative keywords increases or has no impact on your quality score. So what I've found is that there most certainly is. Like, so Google says there's no impact on your quality score based on the use of negative keywords, because they have all this stuff on their website. I'm not going to go into it, but that's their official line. But I've found that using negative keywords most definitely shapes intent around your ads and keywords, and I've seen a meaningful impact on quality score as a result. And so that's my my last and final life hack for today. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's a great one. It does make an impact. Search queries every month, even on established accounts, I'll still be surprised what just unearthing one additional negative keyword can do. Because even if it's something that just you think could be more, a lot of the bad queries are kind of buried in the other search terms part of a search query report. And so using tools like this, you can kind of identify stuff that probably is doing more damage to you than you know, because if it doesn't get a click, a lot of times it just kind of hides out in the other search terms part of your search query report. So very important. Totally agree.
Cool. So
yeah, that's our 10th tip. And since today was all about CTR, I just do want to do a friendly reminder as we wrap up that it's hugely important. Larry talked about it. I can't underscore it enough. It's very important. It's not the only metric, though. So think about profit, think about your CPA, think about return on ad spend, think about your time on site. I don't think that it should be what drives your account. I think it should be how you optimize your account. I think it would be how you drive down your CPA, like Larry was talking about. But when you're seeing if your account's doing the right things, I think there's more to it than just click-through rate. So keep it all in mind. What happens after the click? That's the big stuff.
Yeah, and that's why you'll have to stick around for our next webinar, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And we just have one more poll question for you guys. So we have a couple of offers. Larry and WordStream are willing to offer a free one-on-one AdWords assessment with one of their PPC experts. And then Hanapin is willing to offer a free solutions blueprint. So we take a look at bigger accounts, and it's more than just saying how your account's doing. We kind of talk about the roadmap for it and what it could do in the future. So solutions blueprint, it kind of sounds a little jargony, but it's just well-intentioned. It's just, here's where your account is, here where we think you can get it if you put a little bit more effort into it. So let us know if you're interested in either of those offers. I think the stuff that WordStream offers, their collection of tools is just really staggering if you really get down to it. And I love their keyword niche tool, and I just like all the different stuff they offer that Larry was talking about. So I'm glad that Larry, you were able to join today.
Well, thanks, Sean, and the audience. I think very highly, of course, of Hanapin Marketing as well. They have the coolest PPC blog by far in the industry, with like the PPC hero, and it's jam-packed full of awesome insights. And in fact, I've been reading it, subscribing to it for 5 years. So, that's a kind of a testament to kind of their thought leadership, and I would feel very comfortable recommending Hanapin Marketing for if you're a large company needing expert paid search kind of consulting or management services. Definitely recommend that you take them up on that offer. As for the WordStream software, this is for those, mostly primarily for the people who were self-managing. I think it was like 60% of people were managing themselves. So this would be like just like an exercise machine, like a way to help you be a little bit more effective with your time and with your optimizations, like kind of like and we have this thing called a 20-minute PPC work week, which just gives you like tips like the low-hanging fruit to fix in your account, so that you don't have to look for it, and it just makes it easier. So thanks, sir.
Yeah, I think it's all great. And so we have just 4 minutes left. We're going to try to get through a few of your questions, and then are we going to do a follow-up blog post? I just committed myself to doing a follow-up blog post by even asking the question, guys. So there'll be a follow-up with all the questions. And so the first one, I'll start with you, Larry. Do you recommend using search partners and/or close variant when it comes to your keywords?
It kind of depends. So if in an ideal world, like you shouldn't have to rely on that, because like you would want to be a little bit more intentional, like in terms of the close variant stuff. But I recognize that that requires more time and effort, and if you're kind of a smaller, medium-sized business, maybe it's not worth the effort, and so maybe that's fine. As far as the search partners, just it depends on the vertical. Just segment out the type of click-through rates and metrics that you're getting from the different networks, and you can make that decision quickly.
Yeah, I agree with the stuff you said. One thing I do want to add, I think Bing Ads does a really good job. You can actually exclude search partners one by one. So that's something Google doesn't offer. I really am happy about Bing Ads offering. So that's something to keep in mind, that you can opt into all and then just optimize from there.
Cool.
All right. So we have a question. What are your thoughts on ad fatigue and search PPC? I'll let you go, and then I'll go after.
So we haven't found that this is a huge impact, believe it or not. So I guess it's not the same as display, where people are being hit by the same thing over and over. We haven't seen that phenomenon as being a serious problem. Have you?
I actually haven't. So we run a lot of ad tests, and kind of the most frustrating thing for me, I like to consider myself a creative guy, and creativity has lost a lot of my tests. It's kind of this meat and potatoes approach, and the same ads have won tests month after month after month, and it sort of breaks my heart, because I want to do the creative approaches that you're finding, Larry. I guess we probably just haven't been able to find the same, level of creativity. We haven't been able to effectively utilize the pocket knife or the switchblade yet. So I haven't seen any burn.
Your kung fu is not strong enough there on the switchblade. Okay.
We're still working on it. We're still working on it. And then we have just one question left for now, and then we'll do a follow-up blog post, like I said, like I committed myself to. How do you choose which negative keyword match type to use?
Well, I think I would just use broad negative keyword match type, because it's not as crazy as broad match for keywords. So the definition of broad match on a negative keyword does not include synonyms and all these other things. It's like a very restrictive definition to begin with, whereas broad match for regular keywords, like for targeting, includes like all sorts of weird synonyms and related terms. So there's no, it's really not a huge issue like to be using broad negative keywords, because by definition they're very narrow. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's great. I think that's it's a misconception I hear a lot, that people think that negative broad. I've thought it myself for quite a while. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, it's kind of like broad match modified. So when positive, if you have the plus sign, it means the keyword has to be in the query. If it's negative, it's just for that specific word if it's in the query. So I think negative broad is good, and it covers a lot of spaces. It doesn't even include variations or misspellings. So it is pretty restrictive when it comes to adding traffic out. I'm sure Google wants it that way. If they don't want people excluding themselves out of too much traffic, that's where they make all their dollars. So I think negative broad, just like you were saying, I totally agree with that.
There's this one other thing called negative exact match. So this is kind of interesting. So that's where you would put like the word insurance on negative exact match. And so what that would match against is every keyword containing the word insurance so you'd be able to target all keywords containing the word insurance except for the exact phrase insurance. So like sometimes this is where like some strategies come into play, where you want to bid on branded terms, but not just branded for only the company name itself. So there's some reasons why I might use negative exact match, but I've never seen myself using negative phrase match or anything like that.
Yeah, and it can get a lot of, we use it for embedding negatives. Like, I think it's another strategizing thing that you were talking about. So just like you were saying, you want to exclude certain queries, and we do that just so our stuff's kind of clean. But that was all very well said, Larry, and I agree with what you were saying. And so
Awesome.
that brings us to the end of our webinar today. Larry, thank you so much for joining us and joining Hanapin and PPC Hero on our little little webinar. I appreciate it.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for organizing, and thanks for having me. It's an honor. Thanks.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate your time immensely. It was very nice of you to stop by.